Thank you, Devasis. Good evening, distinguished guests, industry colleagues, and innovators shaping the future of connectivity. As we gather here today, one truth stands out. The networks we build are no longer just about the connecting people and devices, but they are becoming intelligent entities in their own right. So AI is no longer sitting on top of our networks, but it's woven into the very fabric of how our systems operate, optimize, and evolve. From dynamic spectrum management to predictive maintenance and personalized service delivery, telecom networks are transforming the AI native ecosystems. And with that transformation comes a profound responsibility to govern these intelligent network itself. So I want to talk about what that means, how telecom operators can responsibly govern AI systems embedded within their networks, balancing innovation and accountability, and at the same time ensuring privacy, safety, and ethics, which remain at the core of our progress. So these AI native networks are ushering in a new era of efficiency and responsiveness. They self-heal, self-optimize, and self-learn, driving cost savings, better user experiences, and new business models. Imagine networks that predict and prevent outage before they happen, that automatically allocate bandwidth where it is most needed, and that deliver real-time personalized services to millions, all without human intervention. That's the promise of intelligence at scale. But as AI system make more decision autonomously, the question becomes here, who is accountable when things go wrong? So this is where governance steps in, not as a constraint, but as the backbone of trust. AI governance in telecom, and not just about the compliance, it's about creating clarity about how do we ensure AI decisions are transparent and explainable, how do we mitigate risk from biases, errors, or malicious uses, and how do we stay aligned with evolving regulations while counting to innovate. So the first pillar is transparency. AI decisions inside a network can affect anything before traffic prioritization to emergency service reliability. Operators need to understand not just what the system decides, but why it decides that way. So building a transparency framework, what does it mean? It means creating audit trials for AI-driven decisions, using model documentation and explainability tools to make AI logic interpretable, implementing governance dashboards so oversight teams can monitor performances, biases, and safety matrices in real time. So transparency isn't just a compliance checkbox. It is the foundation of trust between operator and customer, and between technology and the society. And the second pillar is the risk mitigation. AI system embedded in networks can amplify small errors into large scale impacts. A misconfigured AI algorithm could reroute traffic inefficiently, expose sensitive data, or even disrupt critical communications. So operators should adopt a layered risk management approach. Thus pre-deploying testing, continuous monitoring, fail-safe mechanism, and the ethical review boards. The another thing is aligning with regulation and global standards. The third pillar after the transparency is the regulatory alignment. Around the world, policymakers are shaping framework like the EU AI Act, our NIST at risk, management framework, and emerging telecom specific standards from the ITU and regional regulators. So operators must engage early and proactively, not waiting for compliance mandates, but helping shape policies and realistic, interoperable, and innovation friendly. Aligning with these standards also ensures interoperability across borders, vital in an era where 5G, 6G, and more other Gs as networks form the backbone of global digital trade and communication. And what about the ethical imperatives? Thus, the heart of governance in the AI lies the ethics. AI native networks will process unprecedented volumes of personal and behavioral data. Safeguarding privacy must remain non-negotiable. That means embedding privacy by design principles into network architecture, enforcing data minimization, and ensuring user consent and control, which are real, non-rhetorical. Ethical governance also extends to how AI is used. Are we using intelligence to empower users or to exploit them? Are automated systems reinforcing fairness or perpetuating inequality? So the choices we make today will define the moral character of the intelligent network as built tomorrow. So here comes the role of telecom leaders. As telecom operator, we are not just managing bandwidth anymore, but we are managing intelligence. That's a new kind of leadership challenge. So we must invest not only in the technology, but also in people and culture. Training our teams in responsible AI practices, at the same time creating cross-functional governance boards that include legal, technical, and ethical perspectives. And at the same time partnering with academia, startups, and regulators to create open, transparent ecosystem. So in short, we can say the governance should evolve from being a defensive strategy to becoming a competitive differentiator. So trust will be the new currency of the intelligent network. So as we look ahead, the telecom industry stands at a crossroads. We can either let intelligence evolve unchecked, or we can govern it with wisdom, transparency, and accountability. The intelligent network of the future will not just connect devices, it will connect values. Privacy, safety, and ethics must be as integral to the network as fiber, spectrum, and silicon. So let's build this system that we would not only relies on but believes in. And before saying thank you, because as you must have heard in the beginning, the presenter have given my introduction as I am working as Secretary Sanskrit Education in Government of Uttarakhand. So I will take 2 more minutes just for telling about the use of Sanskrit in AI environment. As the government worldwide are leveraging artificial intelligence to improve various sectors of governance, in India, with its linguistic and philosophical heritage, we have a unique opportunity, that is integrating Sanskrit education with AI-enabled governance. It is well known that Sanskrit's structured grammar, knowledge systems, and scientific clarity can enhance AI's interpretability, ethical grounding, and capacity to manage multilingual governance challenges. So an artificial intelligence evolves towards narrative environments, systems that generate, interpret, and influence human stories and decisions. So questions of privacy, safety, and ethics become central to governance. So these intelligent networks process vast data, shaping public perception, digital identity, and even moral reasoning. In this context, Sanskrit education provides a unique epistemic and ethical framework for shaping governance principles such as semantically precise, culturally grounded, and ethically self-regulating. So why Sanskrit matters for the AI and governance? Because there is a precision in language. Sanskrit's rule-based grammar, if few of you must have heard of Panini's Ashtadhyayi, that's a voluminous book written on the grammar of Sanskrit. That's a algorithmic, making it an excellent model for developing interpretable natural language processing system. And as far as ethical anchoring is concerned, that is rooted in concepts like dharma, that is duty, ethics. In Sanskrit can inspire AI governance framework that balance efficiency and accountability. So if we correlate this privacy, safety, and ethics through Sanskritic lenses, so privacy in Sanskrit perspective is Atmagupta, that is protection of self. Rahashyam, that is sacred confidentiality. And if we correlate with AI application, this will be correlated to models for data minimization, informed consent, and inner sanctity of digital identity. And as far as safety is concerned, in Sanskrit perspective, it is ahimsa, non-harm, and kshama, well-being. So in AI application, we can correlate it with the risk-aware AI that prioritizes user welfare and avoids harm through predictive ethics. As far as ethics is concerned, so in Sanskrit perspective, it is dharma, that is moral order, and nyaya, that is justice, and satya, that is truth. And correlation with AI is embedding moral reasoning in AI systems, aligning algorithm decisions with fairness and truthfulness. So what I feel for the policy recommendation is the invest in Sanskrit AI research, fund projects that apply Paninian grammar to NLP and governance AI system. So in governing intelligent networks, the challenge is not only technical, but philosophical and linguistic. Sanskrit education equips policymakers and technologists with a language of ethics, logic, and consciousness, essential for managing privacy, safety, and narrative integrity in AI-driven societies. By combining Sanskrit's clarity with AI's computational power, we can lead in crafting trustworthy, transparent, and ethically anchored AI governance to the digital age. So that was my perspective with respect to the AI governance through Sanskrit. And with these words, I will just stop my speech with one sloka in Sanskrit. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukh bhag bhavai. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, Deepak ji. May I now have Peter Jarek, Head of GSMA Intelligence. Peter is going to moderate the next session, which is focused on governing the intelligent network, focused on privacy, safety, and ethics in the AI native environments. Can we have Sunil, Thomas, Rishabh, Faisal on the stage, please? Peter, over to you.
Thank you all very much for sticking around. I would say, there's been a lot of sessions in this room today and a lot of sessions across the event, but I'm glad you're all here for this one because I find this one of the most important topics that we can discuss. And I think sometimes when you have a panel, and I hope we're going to use this panel to dig into some great conversations, when you have sort of a speaker who comes to talk in the beginning, you sort of, it's a great way to frame it. But I think we heard some very important things before this. You know, just a couple of these things I'll take away, which I think set the stage for this discussion really well. One, the idea that we will see, thanks to AI, more data pass across networks than ever before. Data that touches people, data that we have to get right. I think at a global level, that explains why this is such an important topic. But then at the same time, when we think about the Indian market, there are cultural, philosophical things that we need to take into account. It's not going to be the same. We know that AI ethics is important around the world. It's going to be important in different ways in every single market. India is obviously a very important market with its own requirements. I think we're going to dig into that. I'll say that on to that. The youth population, the software base here, it makes it such an important conversation for the market here. It's going to be a great conversation. I'm going to sit down because even though my name's the only one that isn't in all caps, I think I'm an important part of this. So I'm going to sit down and we're going to have a good conversation and keep some questions in line as well, because I think we may save some time for questions from the audience. And I think these folks are going to want to hear from you all. Move from one microphone to the other. That was seamless. Thank you very much. So, once again, my name is Peter Jarek. I'm the head of GSMA Intelligence. For those of you who don't know, GSMA Intelligence is the research and consulting arm of the GSMA. What we try to do at the GSMA you heard from Jeanette before, I think if you were in the room, about some of the work that we have if you go visit the booth. But one of the things I think we try and do is when we advocate or we have industry positions, we don't just throw them out there. Right? We don't just say things. We leave that to people like Elon Musk. He just says things without any basis. That's fine for some folks. But for us, we like to make sure, I won't mention politicians, as you can tell, I'm an American. But we like to make sure that whenever we say something, there is a strong, solid, foundational basis of research and data. And my team, honored to be a part of that. If you want to know more, happy to chat. But you're not here to hear from me or here to hear jokes about politicians. So what I'm going to ask everyone really quickly to do before we get into the questions is just introduce yourself. I always find that when you get everyone's bio, I'm sure you've all seen this as well, your official bio might be like one sentence which says nothing, or it could be a paragraph that talks about the grades, the elementary school you went to and how many pets you have. I will let you all share as much or as little of that as you want, but maybe if we can just go down the line, name, title, and sort of how you come to the conversation of AI. So Sunil, we can begin with you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to GSMA for having me on this panel. I'm Sunil, and I'm part of Meta's public policy team. I focus on content, data governance, and emerging tech. I come to this conversation extremely optimistic about the potential of Gen AI, especially for India.
Hi, my name is Thomas. I'm 25 years in the industry. I'm on the board of director now, and I'm also part-time for GSMA on the road. And I'm also very excited into the Iran specific. I think India has a huge potential, and I think if there is the right moment, we can drive the direction of AI, because it will anyway happen. But I think with the right guidance around it, it makes a huge impact.
Thank you. My name is Faisal Ghazali, and I'm looking after the OSS solutions globally at Rakuten Symphony. So very excited to be here with you on this important topic, which is going to touch our society in the first place. So looking to make a positive contribution into that, and I think be part of the change we're going to see in the world because of the AI era and what we're going through in terms of automating and digitalizing everything around us in this community and society. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rishabh. I lead consumer products at Airtel. If any one of you has ever paid your bill or recharged online, they probably used one of my products that I built. At Airtel, I also lead all AI initiatives, including what we do within the network, also for our consumers as well. So we're very closely associated with this particular topic, and I'm very excited to discuss this with this panel. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much. I think we've got a great spectrum here, great representative from industry, from the operators, regulation side. I think we're gonna have a good conversation. So let me begin. And again, we had a great introduction. Thank you very much. We had a great sort of kickoff to explain sort of how we need to be thinking about this, but maybe just dig into sort of the context. If we think about the importance of AI ethics, about getting this right, doing AI safely, anything else to add in terms of from a telecom space, right? Because I think more broadly we get it, but from a telecom space, are there specific things we need, like why is AI ethics so important? Is it something that isn't it just going to take care of itself? Why do we need to be worried about it in telecom right now? And maybe I'll start with anyone that, feel free, if you don't have a good answer, you don't need to, but please.
Yeah, if I'm permitted, I'd like to perhaps provoke a debate.
Yes.
The argument I want to make is, in order to have safe and ethical AI, you might need unsafe and unethical building blocks. This is the argument I would like to make. Mostly because I come from a company that is building the foundational technology, which is, we have 650 open source projects on GitHub and Hugging Face. This is Meta's open source portfolio. At least 500 of those projects are AI projects. And let us look at a couple of use cases within the telecom context where the telecom operator is trying to deal with harm. So we have cyber attacks, which the telecom operator wants to deal with. There is unlawful or unsolicited messaging, perhaps fraudulent scams. There may be other kinds of content which is unacceptable for other reasons outside fraudulent scams, like illegal content. And ideally, what they want to do is to create classifiers to detect all these problems, or even perhaps create better cyber attack mitigation, signature detection tools, and so on. And to do that, ideally they need the LLM to be unsafe or unethical, and to produce synthetic data sets of spammy content, of illegal content. Otherwise, the biggest incumbent will always have the best training data set, and everybody else will not be there. So my provocation to all of us is, in order to have safe use cases, you need unsafe general purpose technology. And if the regulator forces the whole supply chain to be safe, then the final use case will be unsafe.
So it's a great debate topic. I guess one question is, it sort of assumes, and it comes from this idea of the topic is important to begin with, right? So I mean, maybe coming at the question of why is the topic important, this is maybe what we need to do to make AI safe. Do we really have, is there a real reason to worry about it being unsafe, particularly from a telco perspective? And what are the stakes in the telco perspective? Because I think it's a really good point Sunil brings up in terms of what we need to make it safe.
Yeah,
but do we need to be worried?
Again, I think every new technology needs some boundaries. And I think, when you look back, electricity, it was not a safe technology at the beginning. When they had the fight between, is it AC or DC, there was a lot of unsafe environment at the end of the day, and some of the light exploded, nobody didn't know it. So I think there is a certain period of time, which I would partly agree with Sunil on it, where there is a little bit of that unsafety. But I think we need to have always ethics in mind. It doesn't matter what we are doing. We need to have an ethic principle on it. But again, I don't think we need to be worried about safety in general. So let's turn it this way. I think it will come automatically during that period of development we are doing, as long as we have an ethical principle behind.
Thank you. I think in order to see the importance of this topic, as you said, start with the topic, basically we need to size the problem. So probably we need to look at some figures to know how severe is this problem, how severe is this a problem for our people and for the services we want to give to these people. So Some of the basically analyst has put there that in 2024 there was 150 billion of basically worth of fraud in the entire, let's say, API and AI domain, because the market, as Thomas has said, is going through a learning curve with any technology, and that was basically the beginning of it, and there is a massive amount of fraud has happened. And I think the market is going to get a little more mature as we progress. However, when we come to the telecom context, the importance increase as well, because first we are dealing with the subscriber data as compared to enterprise, where probably you're dealing with some CRM data or some data which belongs to them and not so sensitive to the subscriber per name or per number. The second thing, that telecom is in the center of everything because it's connectivity. You might have vulnerability at the edge. You might have vulnerability within an enterprise, but it's different when you have vulnerability in the backbone. And that basically exposes all the enterprises together as in one place. So that is the importance of it in the telco context. And the size of the problem or the size of the challenge is quite obvious from the numbers. And maybe that's one of the statistics. There are many, but just conscious of time. Yeah.
And I would say, just if I think about the perspective then from an Airtel perspective, right? If I put in, we're lucky we work with a lot of operators, and when I talk to them, I hear two things, and would love to hear if this is different for you, but I hear sort of two concerns around AI safety. One is, if you get it wrong and something happens, that whether or not it was the operator's fault, you'll probably be blamed in some way, right? And we see this in a lot of markets with frauds and scams.
Yep.
The operator might just be the messenger, they might be the conduit, but they're being blamed. And as a result of that, I hear worries about two things. One, your reputation gets harmed, and in the market you don't look good. Or two, the government or someone comes and finds you or comes at you. Is that, are you seeing that same? Are you seeing that same in the Indian market?
Absolutely. So I'm going to take a little bit of what analogy that Thomas made, that electricity is something which is an important aspect of our lives, and network and connectivity is such an important foundation for everything that we as a country do. Everything from using a telephone to connect with people, to using data, to doing payments. It is an important foundation stone for the entire economy. And when some things go wrong, it becomes a prerogative for industry, for like us, to figure out how we can potentially protect our customers. It's an important responsibility that we have undertaken to go beyond just giving connectivity to saying we are responsible for a certain amount of safety as well. Now, I was in earlier sessions today itself, and we talked about open APIs and how they are able to govern a network. And these are very, very powerful tools. If going into the wrong hands, they can have an impact which can range from a small inconvenience to absolute catastrophe. Because if the network parameters go off and there is no control levers that are available with an AI who's very well trained to do it, or there are no governance on it, it becomes extremely difficult, especially if there are no explainability factors or trust factors built into it as well. A lot of the investment that needs to be made when I think about technology governing AI is around building those trust markers, having a very clean explainability model so that we can absolutely trace it back a decision that is made by an AI to govern a network.
That's fair. That's great. So I mean, maybe then we'll start building off of that. I guess the follow-on question might be, when we look at the Indian market, because I think these were great discussions and great explanations of maybe in general what we need to do, maybe having unsafe, untrusted LLMs to push us in the right direction, being worried but not too worried, and looking at some examples and whatnot. But when we think about the Indian market, what do we need to do to get it right? The balance between innovation but transparency, and you talked about, right, untested explainability, right? We heard the explainability side of things. Where is that line between regulation, innovation, and what we need to do to keep AI safe for the Indian market specifically? And I think you obviously have some probably deep insights.
Absolutely. So Indian market is very interesting because of a couple of reasons. Number one is that the amount of data and the amount of information that is available out there as a network operator in this country is huge. Couple of reasons. The population is vast, the data prices are very low, so the amount of information that is consumed by the Indians is very vast. Second is that the amount of personal information that is also flowing through a network is also extremely high. So the protection levers start at the very beginning. So if a user is sharing any personal data, or if there is anything incoming into the network, right at the gate, we need to make sure that that is protected. There is some amount of semblance of either some kind of encryption, making sure that the firewall is very strong. There is no prompt injection that is coming in, because a lot of these things we have to govern at the very top before they even enter our ecosystem, right? So I think some of these factors is very specific to India, because of, as I said, the volume of information is extremely vast.
Any other, for those folks who've either been here a while or colleagues, what you think is particularly useful, important?
Yeah, I think, I agree. I think the challenge is a little bit, data will change what we have today. What I mean is, in the old day, we collected data, we had that for a purpose. That's, the DPA, what you have.
Yes.
And then you store it, which was a cool, did work. It was like, Switzerland, very, very slow, things was very clear. But these days with data, I think the problem is, if you use my data, for example, and you run an LLM, I have no control anymore around that data. The other part is, you generate, generative data. Is that maybe coming from my walk I did here in the hall? So how do we manage that? I think is a big challenge in the future, and I think we need to do a step-by-step approach. I think we cannot. From my point, we need to balance between overreact and let it go, but always have a good eye on it, what is happening, that we can react if something is getting out of control. And we definitely need not the operator making then blaming, like in scamming, all the fault is just because we are devising that. So that's a little bit, I think,
maintain a constant watching brief to make sure that you're watching it, but not get too overreacting.
Yeah, so here I would like to resist the temptation to use AI as an umbrella term for all AI. I want to make a very hard distinction between probabilistic and prediction models or classification models, and then Gen AI models. I think they're two completely different things. They come from completely different paradigms of computing. So in classification or predictive models, we have only two types of statistical errors, type 1 and type 2, also called false positive and false negative. And for example, if you're accusing a user of fraud or classifying a user as a criminal, that has profound implications for the human rights, and that is where explanation is critical, to have the right to explanation and so on. So that is a particular type of technology. And then we come to this other type of technology, which is Gen AI. Here we don't have any error classification. It is either it meets the user's expectation or it doesn't, and that's all. It can be in any direction. And then the second thing, just to push back on what Thomas said, I think memorization risks are low in Gen AI, because what is happening broadly is, at least in the world models, 100 exabytes of data is being compressed to a 3 GB file, to a 1 GB file at the very smallest. The memorization risks are low, so the so-called idea that when I train a Gen AI model, PI is going into the model, I'm not so sure. If it happens, I call Gen AI a lottery privacy infringement technology. Now and then you can infringe somebody's privacy, but it's not a reliable technology to infringe somebody's privacy. So I think if we use Gen AI on a support bot, then it's the risk to the rights of the user is lower, and therefore we can be a little less concerned about it. But if you're using traditional or predictive AI to say that this person is a criminal, then we need to think quite hard. Maybe we want a human in the middle of the loop or on the loop or something like that. So that is
No, and it's a really good reminder that I think we speak about AI at a very top level, right? We just use this top level term AI a lot, and there's so much underneath it, right? From the basics of machine vision, which I think many of us in college, I mean, years and years and years ago, I had colleagues who were working on machine vision, right? That's the foundations of it. And so I think it does bring up an issue that, because there are technical nuances involved in this, that particularly when you get to regulation, and particularly when you get to the way we think about it, we forget that, and this is not to make fun of any government officials, they're not always as technologically savvy as many of us are here, right? And I think even most people might not be, because we live and breathe it. And so I think it does bring up some issues of having to, I think your example was a great one of how we can sort of explain in a simple way, because everyone's going to need to become savvy with this. I guess maybe just changing the topic. We've been talking a bit here about sort of AI in different forms, how it touches users. But I think particularly in an event like this, you'll see a lot of discussion around AI for telcos themselves, how operators are using artificial intelligence, probabilistic as well as Gen AI, all forms of AI, to run their networks, manage their networks. When we go out and we work with operators and we track their AI deployments, it's not surprising the vast majority to date are still internally focused for their own operations. Where does the importance of ethical, safe AI, where are the risks for operators thinking about deploying AI within their own networks? And
Yeah, actually, it's a very important topic, because you can see in the world now a movement towards data sovereignty. And you can see that even the regulators has started paying attention that data is a national resource and has a lot of privacy consideration. So there is a lot of initiatives around the world and here in the region where countries are building their own, basically, models and trying to run those models in their data centers and so on. And that is basically an important aspect of that. But also AI, as it imposes a lot of opportunity, it also imposes this risk. It imposes even the risk today in hacking the data using what is called the adaptive attackers, which uses actually AI to intercept the data and in an adaptive way. So they look dynamically for vulnerabilities in the APIs. And that is not a human looking like before. It's basically the AI itself is doing that. And it lowered the entry barrier for hackers as well, by the way, because hackers no longer need that super advanced knowledge. Rather, they can actually rely on AI, agentic AI, to tell them how and what they want to do. They give them the intent, okay, and AI goes and does that for them, okay? And that's why you see a surge of that. On the other side, AI is basically preventing that. So it's AI battling and with each other. And with that, I mean, we have to be a little bit more regulated. So I put, let's say, the data security in general in two buckets. One is the technical hacking, and one is the social hacking, by the way, which is not technical. I mean, you can trick people in social tricks, and you get the credential, and then you become an authorized user. Like technical, basically, API runs on top of HTTPS, and if you get this token bearer, I don't want to be too technical, basically you become that guy and you take the traffic and then you control everything. On the other side, social hacking, we all know and we heard of, is like how you ask questions and do certain conversation to get that. So you have a location of the data risk, you have a technical risk, you have a social risk. So regulator has a lot of awareness responsibility, education, regulation, this consent frameworks, all these things has to be done by the regulator, not only the regulator, then the rest of the community has to come together, which is the private sector, the basically public sector, as well as the individual itself. Yeah.
I mean, I guess if there's one good thing from that, I think most of the research shows that a lot of these hacks begin with the social side of things, which we can fix, right? I mean, I think that's something that we just need to train people. I mean, any other thoughts from an Airtel perspective? I mean, how are you seeing the impact of AI on your own networks? And then are you seeing pressure in terms of how we think about network resilience is becoming more and more important, especially as we see hacks, as we see networks going down. I think there's some examples, not in India, but in other countries, of networks going down, people dying as a result, and that's not. How are you seeing sort of the focus on safe, ethical AI from a network perspective?
Correct. So you kind of asked a very layered question, so I'm going to maybe unpeel it a little bit. I would say broadly the three aspects of where we see some amount of protection we need to build. First is around private data, making sure that all of that is protected, because with AI dealing with information about a lot of our citizens and our countries, it is very, very important that is handled extremely, extremely carefully. The second part is about ethics, avoiding biases in the models. I think this is what Sunil also mentioned, that when we are using Gen AI, I think the impact is, of course, a little limited because it is probabilistic. But when we are using AI agents to build self-healing networks, do network planning, there is more importance of saying we need to get it right. And over there, it is extremely important to make sure that every kind of bias is removed, which is the ethical aspect of it, right? Because if we train our AI on some of just the puristic data without putting in the human intelligence, the guardrails in the loop, it is very prone to make incorrect decisions, which may not be right. The third part, Peter, on what you said, is the external attacks, the DDoS attacks, or somebody trying to put in their own prompts, or trying to actually go into the AI ecosystem and trying to pull out information, or actually make some changes to parameters. It starts with how we build the foundation of the network itself. I think when we start thinking about AI, it goes along with the design of network, which has to be secure. And in that respect, I look regulator as enablers rather than actually pausing or making an impediment to growth. Because those governing frameworks is what actually scales and makes us much, much more secure from day one. So having a very strong design of the network with a governance layer independent of the AI agents we've built is one of the first, a core principle, for example, that we have taken, right? So if a decision is being made by one AI agent, there would be another independent AI agent as a judge to make sure that's actually the right thing to do. And therefore, that creates a very clean protocol for us to make sure that some of these biases, some of these breakages are removed from the equation from the get-go.
So I guess, what's interesting is, so that's a good example of how you're looking to safely, securely roll out AI, what you can do. And it's a good example. I guess the question is, do we see your examples being picked up anywhere else? So I guess the question is, we're talking about within India, we're talking about specific examples. How are we seeing global collaboration? Because this isn't just an Indian issue, right? There may be specific issues here. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing collaboration? Are any of us seeing collaboration across operators, across the industry, to roll out best practices in a way that we can benefit from good learnings, we can benefit from good processes, but also we can make sure that we're tackling this at a global level where it really is an issue? Are we seeing sort of good collaboration out there either between operators in different countries or between operators in industry?
I would say we are seeing very early days of where collaboration is emerging. Airtel participates in a lot of industry associations where we all collaborate and share our mutual learnings. I believe that is one of the most important things that as a ecosystem across globe we need to do, is actually make sure that all of our learnings, our best practices become available to everyone else. Because I'm sure that as we progress in our journey using AI, all of us will make mistakes. And something that would be very helpful as a industry and as an organization as you come together is how do we actually make this extremely transparent, and even if required, share a lot more such panel discussions to actually be more open in kind, saying, hey, this is where we actually worked well. Here we actually did not work well. This is what we should be thinking about when somebody else builds something around AI.
That's a good point. Thomas.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything very specific around that. I think most of the exchange is happening through, as you said, traditional, standard groups or conferences. But I think it would be good to create that very specific about AI to really leverage what other countries are doing or operators or, tech companies and really have a very specific focus on that. I think that would be definitely the right approach.
I'd like to use an example of a Meta open source project, which is NLLB 200, which is a language database of low resource languages. The language model of low resource languages. The authors on the paper are only 10 authors or so, but the model supports 200 languages. So with the self-supervised paradigm, people from Lithuania can make an Indic language model. That is the collaboration opportunity offered by this paradigm. We have found, especially with hostile speech on our platforms, and again, that would be useful for the spam use case and the fraud use case and a variety of other illegal use cases. Somehow, even if you don't have parallel corpora in languages, but you just train in a self-supervised way on Indic languages, the knowledge from one language somehow automatically transfers to the other language. So there's a lot of power in the technology itself. However, small disagreement with my colleagues, especially on these harm classifiers, it's an antagonistic space. If you release your code and say this is how we are catching the bad actors, then the bad actors will get smarter. So unlike foundational AI research, where you should share open source and you should publish your findings, I think the telcos perhaps should not publish some of their findings because the criminals will learn what it is that they're doing, basically.
I also want to say that historically, the collaboration between CSPs has been going through the open forums, I would say. And there is a huge responsibility and expectation is going to be on the basically TMF and GSMA and others to take the best practices from the market and standardize them in the proper way, because there is very limited, let's say, forums to get on the very tiny level of details. And at the end of the day, a lot of the CSPs there are pioneers, a lot of the CSPs there are technology users. So they are, depends on the CSP, it will be different basically. And that is something we're going to see more. And we started seeing, by the way, when you speak about like API security, TM Forum does things, and GSMA Gateway also does things. So we will see more and more of this, and that is what we need to focus, that the CSPs contributes to the forums. And this is the way how we're going to achieve
I think that's right. I think it is and to the earlier point, this is still early. Sharing stories, sharing what goes right, what goes wrong will help us to form that. Keeping some of it back, not sharing everything. I would just put in a tiny bit of a plug for some of my colleagues at the GSMA from part of our ethical AI team. They actually worked with everyone's favorite extremely expensive strategy consulting firm. Begins with an M, ends with a Y, and they put together a really, really solid framework for ethical AI and how operators can judge where they are, gauge where they are. The ecosystem can look at that. Please check it out. I'm happy to point you to it. I think we all need to learn from each other, so it's important. One last question, I think, as we think about the conversation, and thank you all. It's been from technical to strategic. It's been a great overview. If you can think of one thing that if we think about the next 12 to 18 months, and going back to the kickoff in the beginning, we know there's going to be such a user base of AI tools, AI capabilities across the world and here in India. And if it's not seen as safe, if it's not seen as transparent, that's only going to hurt the adoption, right? We need to ensure that people see it as safe, they see it as transparent, they see it as something that they can actually trust in. What's the one thing over the next 12 to 18 months that we can do here in India to make sure that the users are comfortable with it and they actually see it as something that they're okay with, so that we can actually capitalize on the opportunity. Maybe, Sunil, you can.
Peter, I think I'll just repeat myself. I think
Release the untrusted models.
No. The additional secretary from METI said that we need data sets and shared data sets. So I think that would be perhaps one thing to work on. And then, as you said, perhaps to use what you said to modify my earlier point, there can be some confidential bilateral sharing between the telcos of the secret sauce facilitated by GSMA. And maybe some portions can also go into the public domain. Many of the AI companies, including the Chinese ones, Quen, DeepSeek, they publish very detailed scientific papers. And the publication of those papers allows independent academics to stand up and say, you can trust the telcos, you can trust the companies. That's what.
And I think very, very encouragingly, you're seeing China really going for an open angle around AI. And so I think it's encouraging. Thomas?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just to be very clear, there is no hacker attack until today came out of an AI train. Take away that AI is a danger for us. AI is an opportunity for us. And we should really believe that everybody is in a positive mood to drive that to the next level.
I think also in India context, again, being an external and having an external eye to what's happening here in India, what India has achieved with the open India stack is something really impressive. And I think we're going to see more of these stacks happening in a local countries around the world. So this stack, today's scope is to govern the data, basically UPI, the Unified Payment Interface, as well as the KYC, know your customer. In UAE, there is what's called UAE Digital, which is similar to what's happening here. So two things, the scope of India Stack is going to basically expand. So it provides more safety net to more basically services in the country. And the second thing, I expect that sandboxes will be created by the government in order to govern the basically interfaces between the telco and the enterprises, and telco to telco, and enterprise to enterprise. And those sandboxes are needed to act as the lab for the integrations and make sure that whatever interfaces is developed there is tested and approved by the regulator and by the security rules as well.
It's a good example, particularly with how quickly and how effectively UPI has been rolled out. It's an incredible example of what can be done. Last but not least.
Yeah, I think the most important for me is the transparency of how we all operate together, and it meets across all stakeholders. As telcos, more transparency, because if we build our own forts, bad actors can easily navigate between them, so it's important for that. Within the organization, how are we sharing more information, making internal stakeholders more aware of what is the next kind of thing that is happening? Building internal trust is a very important aspect of using AI. And finally, to the end customers, when we roll out our AI-enabled product, how do they trust that it's going to work for them? The example that Faisal gave, UPI works because customers trust that money going from my account is going to land in somebody else's account, and there's nobody who's going to snatch it in between, right? So even for the end customers, it's important for them to understand that when any organization, especially a telco, rolls out an AI product, it is trustworthy, and that begins with being very transparent about how we're doing it, why we're doing it, what we're doing. The product that Airtel has launched in terms of identifying suspected spam or identifying links which could be malicious. These are all AI-enabled products which we are saying that this is something to protect our customers. That's a trust enabler we have launched, which is the first use case that we actually launched using AI for our customers. And that's where it starts.
And hopefully that if we see more examples like that, people will come to understand the value, come to trust it, And that's a great note to end on. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists? I think we are at the top of the hour. Will you all be around? I think we're at the top of the hour, so we want to end, but if you come up here, we'll take your question. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so we were talking about the AI, but I have a question. Like, there are a lot of LLMs, and like in Chat GPT, we are uploading a lot of documents, customer documents, and even the information which is confidential. So, can we trust that this is not being manipulated or biased or not being breached? Like, a lot of individuals, they are putting their personal information in the Chat GPT, asking their questions. So is it all safe? Can we say that? Is there a governance proper that this is not being breached and we can totally rely on the Chat GPTs like AI tools where we can put our personal information, like I want a prediction of my hands and I just scan it and then ask for the prediction. So is it safe putting my hand scan, or it is not going, because these are all open source projects. So where is it being stored and who all is accessing all this data? I am not sure. So I don't trust. So that is why I'm asking it. And being from the same background on the cybersecurity, so that is what my question is.
So I think the broad question is, can we feel safe in interactions with AI apps right now? How safe should we feel? How safe can we feel?
While I cannot comment on how specifically OpenAI is built, but the principle goes, when a product is free, then you are the product, which means that your information is what is being used to train the models, because all of these are going to be self-learning ecosystems. So I think that's something which is a black box for a lot of people on how the LLMs have been built. But specifically when it comes to how a lot of us are imagining when we think about AI products, there's a very strong emphasis on data security, data sovereignty, making sure that everything is very well within the ecosystem of, let's say, Airtel. When we build it, we do not use directly an open source model. We would basically keep it something which is within our own ecosystem, so that nothing is able to go out as well. So these are some of the, as I mentioned, the first principles and best practices needs to be established at the very first point at which we build the ecosystem, which is the privacy by design and the network design that we do. We just absolutely have to be very sure that nothing is going outside of this ecosystem itself.
So in that case, like we should not use open source AI tools because we are not sure whether the data is being protected or not. Though
Yeah, again,
we say that it is being protected, but
again, it's not black and white. Just to be clear, as a very clear claim. You know, there are companies who use. I mean, you know, go to a search engine today. Is it safe? No, it's not safe. They collect your data. And you know, on one side they tell you, hey, this is great for you because next time if you ask for something, I help you. You know, if you go to this big e-shop, which we don't name, you know, they have a recommendation list. Is it safe for you? Maybe, maybe not. But you know, they want to help you. So it's a little bit a gray area. Plus, again, it's also a little bit what are the information you are doing, and then like again, I think on the operator side, I think they are much more clear. They will not leverage your data. They have no interest in that. But other company outside, you know, you have to be careful on it. But again, don't see it as black and white. It's really very individual and depending on the model and depending on the companies who are behind. So it's really a little bit, unfortunately, to find the right balance or use the right operator.
okay.
Thank you.
Go for it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question. Before we all leave, we have some mementos. Here we go.